Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crime and Entertainment. Now, we have a very, very interesting story for you guys today. I heard this man's story a few weeks back on our friend Matt Cox's podcast, and I said, I've got to reach out to this individual and get him on the show because his story is amazing and a lot like the stories that we've had on here. You know, there's the bad decisions, there's the consequences, and then the turning it into a positive. And that's kind of what we like to do here on Crime and Entertainment, and that is exactly what we have for you today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to Crime and Entertainment, Kase Blaize. Kase, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. What about yourself, man?
I'm hanging in there. Not bad for a Monday. I don't know what day I'll release this podcast, but we're recording on a Monday, so Mondays are always a little rough.
Right. The case of the Mondays, man.
That's right. Now we're gonna tag you in Facebook on this when this is dropped, but on
Okay.
Facebook you got a different name on there, a little bit tweaking of the spelling with
Yeah.
Kase Blaize. Now, why exactly do we have a different spelling on there?
All right. So, Kase Blaize is my DJ name. So I've been DJing for like 8 years now. Professional DJ and things like that. But when I created my Facebook account, it wouldn't let me put Cass because it was too close to ass. So they considered it profanity. So I had to drop an S and put an E up there. So that's how, and that's why the spelling is up there like that. So
Oh,
thanks, Mark Zuckerberg. But yeah.
yeah. Come on, man. Let him put his name up there for crying out
Right?
loud.
And it
Oh,
told me that too. It sent me an email saying we can't do that. It's too much of profanity.
oh,
And I had
really?
to,
Did you?
yeah, actually, they
Yeah.
sent me an email saying it was profanity, too close to a profanity word or whatever it was. I was
Wow.
like, oh man.
That's crazy. I hear there's a comedian out there. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but Country Wayne. You ever
Oh
seen
yeah,
his
yeah, yeah,
stuff? I
yeah.
know I
Uh
want
huh.
to say he had like a Facebook page that got taken down because he had the name spelled with the K like he does. And I
Yeah.
think he even legally had it changed to that. And they still took his Facebook down. It's like every time they would take him down, he would come back with like double the followers. That dude's blowing up now, man. And I remember him like he was first starting, like watching him and
Oh
how
man.
funny he was.
So they were telling me how he was spelling country wrong.
Yeah, they were
Is
saying
that
it
what?
wasn't a government issued name or something like that. He told a story about it
Oh
on a
yeah.
podcast. But yeah, it was crazy. So that's Facebook needs to tighten up on that, man.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Oh well, man. This is like I think my third Facebook because as we get into the stories,
Right.
of me. So this is like my third one actually where I'm not hiding. Let's put
Hey,
it that way.
yeah.
So
And we'll get into what that means later on because there's a period of time where you
yeah,
were hiding out.
yeah,
Well, let's start from the beginning, man. Like every good story, we got to start from the
yeah.
beginning, get the backstory, and then kind of the main plot point. So, where did you grow up as a youngster? What part of the town? What part of the states?
Man, so I grew up in California, Southern California. So, I was born in Torrance. It's a city like right outside Compton, actually. And I was raised from Los Angeles all the way to Orange County, depending on the parts of Orange County. If whoever's familiar with Southern Los Angeles, Southern California, it's about an hour to 2 hour difference of city driving, not country driving, but city driving.
All right.
So I grew up out there, Southern California, Los Angeles, Orange County, pretty much, me, and my mother, and had some family members out there as well too.
Okay. Now, later on, you moved to Denver. Is that right?
Yes, actually, I ended up moving to it was actually Colorado Springs,
Colorado
which is
Springs.
like an hour south of Denver. Yeah, that's where all the bad decisions happened, you
Oh
should
boy.
say. But yeah, that's where I ended up moving to.
Now, out there, they got that hotel, right? The Shining Hotel. You ever go to that while you're out there? What the Stanley, I think it
Oh,
is.
yeah. That's out by Denver. No, I never saw the hotel, but I know what you're talking about because it's supposed to be one of the haunted hotels there is.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm into that.
supposedly.
I'm into that type of stuff, so I know
Oh
exactly what
yeah.
you're talking about.
Yeah, me too. I haven't ever been to Denver, but if I ever do, like that's where I want to stay at. And I'm trying to convince my wife, and that's a hard sell right now.
Man, Denver is amazing, man. Denver is one of my favorite cities. It really is. We were just out there not long ago, but yeah, Denver is one of my favorite cities.
Okay. So when we get into Denver, you said that's when some of the bad decisions start happening. Tell us a little bit
Yeah,
about that.
man.
Because what age did you move out there first? Let's
All
get down.
right, so when I finished high school, I always wanted to be on my own. I always wanted to get out and venture out. I wasn't that stay at home person.
All
So as
right.
soon as I was able, I think like 18, I just started leaving moving out the house. They didn't have to kick me out. I left myself because that's what I wanted to do, right? So I ended up moving to Colorado, and when I was in Colorado, I was in, like I said, Colorado Springs, which is an hour south of Denver.
Mhm.
Denver's a really big city. Colorado Springs is smaller. At that time, I think it was maybe 300,000 people in Colorado Springs, maybe 400,000 people. But there's military bases there. So you have an army base.
Right.
You also have the Air Force Academy there. And then there's another base there as well. So my family was all a military background. My mom was Air Force, dad Navy. I had almost a whole family with military. My grandfather was like a 35-year veteran. He did Korean War, Vietnam, World War II. So I wanted to follow in their footsteps, and I was actually going to join the Air Force. So I said, why don't I go out here to Colorado where all these bases are at, and they're known for, being in the military, and it'll set me on the right path. Well, I didn't follow that path, obviously, but
It
that was
wasn't
the
with
reason
good
why I moved
intentions.
out there. Yeah, it was good. I was how old was I? I think turning 21 or something like that when I first moved out there. I wasn't 21 quite yet, but I was about 20 years old when I first moved out there.
All right. Now, when you get out there, you said you were going to go into the Navy. And first off, let me just say we appreciate all the service that your family members
Yes.
gave to the country. We appreciate the veterans really, really, so much. And I want to push to get some sort of charity or something like that going to help them out because I think the veterans don't get the medical care and a lot of the things that they
No,
deserve
man.
once they get back here. It's really a point where we're dropping the ball, taking care of our veterans. So anything that I can do to try to start helping take care of the veterans is something that I'm looking to either create or if somebody's already got one, help them out with that sort of platform because I think the veterans deserve a whole lot more credit and help than what they're getting, especially nowadays. So
I agree with you too. A lot of people don't know this, but when you're in jail, you see a lot of veterans in there because they're homeless
right,
and they might have mental issues.
yeah,
And a lot of them end up being in jail and for trespassing charges, and they're getting these charges on them for trespassing because they have nowhere to go,
yeah.
and their mental insanity is not right to hold a job, and it's really, really sad situation.
Yes, it is, and that's something that a lot of people don't realize. They don't think that far ahead, especially if you've never been inside a jail or a prison, and you don't see that. You don't look at it from that side of the perspective. But you're absolutely correct. There is a lot of them in there, and it's through no fault of their own. Like you said, they just don't have anywhere to go.
Yep.
So, at what point? I know you're about to look into the Navy, but you kind of have an issue with a roommate that
Yeah.
spawns you on an entirely different path
Oh
in
man.
life, man. And have you ever
Oh
found this
yeah.
guy? Have you ever found this guy since then?
No, I've never heard from him. I've tried to even look for him on like I don't know if this guy's alive. I don't know, but I've never found him since then. Who knows?
All right, well, give our audience that story because this is kind of
Yeah.
like that point. This is that point in the story where you say, "All right, this turned everything this away. I was going this way, this happened, and now we're going this way."
Yeah. So I ended up moving in my apartment. Like I said, I was gonna join the Air Force actually. I was gonna join the Air Force and I ended up moving to my apartment. I needed a roommate at the time. And I found this guy through a friend, knew another friend. He ended up living with me. He wasn't there that long, maybe about 3 months or something like that. So we're living together and rent's coming up around the third month. So rent's coming up and I come home one day. I notice all his stuff is gone from the room except for a TV. So I'm like, well, where's he at? Where's this guy at? Where's he at? His name was Dave actually. Where's Dave at? Where's he at? So at that time, we really didn't have cell phones. This was a two-way pager era. So paging him on his two-way pager, he's not responding. So eventually he ends up calling me back later on that night. Gives me a call and he's like, "Hey, I'm sorry I had to dip." Gives me a bunch of excuses. I don't even remember what the excuses were. It was so long ago. This was maybe like about 2001-ish. It was before the trade towers fell.
Okay,
When all this happened. So that way the audience gets a picture of how long ago this was.
right.
So yeah, so I get a hold of him and he tells me, "Yeah, sorry man, I had to leave. I don't have the money to help pay for the rent." And at this time, I mean, rent was really cheap, maybe dollars, five. It wasn't that expensive, you know. Rent was cheaper back then. So he goes, if you could take that TV in my room and you could sell it and use that money towards the rent. So I said, okay, fine. So I ended up taking a TV and I took it to a pawn shop. Went and pawned the TV. I think I got like 150 bucks for it or something like that. It was like a Sony TV. It was pretty new TV actually at that time, and went and paid the rent off with that. And you know, everything was good, fine and dandy. I lived in that apartment for maybe another. I didn't have a long lease. I think I only signed a 9 month lease or something like that. Well, I ended up moving out that apartment and moving in with a girlfriend of mine who was actually pregnant with my son at the time. So I ended up moving in with her, and you know, I'm working a regular job. You know, not really out there doing like a lot of bad things, you know, stuff like that. Um, well, one time I'm actually at a party, and this party is probably about maybe 8 months, 9 months after I sold this TV or pawned this TV. It couldn't even be longer. I just know it was a long time. I'm driving, I end up getting pulled over. And when I get pulled over, cop comes up to me, you know, asks me for my driver's license, you know, the regular thing, give him everything. So I'm sitting there in my car. Next thing you know, I see about 4 or 5 cop cars come up. One comes in front of me. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? You know, this is not good.
Yeah,
So
when more than one show up, that's usually not a good sign.
oh yeah, so it was about 4 or 5 that showed up. So I was like, you know, and me, I was like, I got nothing to worry about. I haven't done anything. So the cop comes to me. He goes, "Sir, I need you to step out the car." So I step out the car. He goes, "You look like you're a respectful kid. I just want to let you know that you have there's some charges for on you, and you got a warrant out for your arrest." And I was like, you know, for what? And he goes, for a theft, burglary, false information to a pawn shop. It was like 6 charges altogether. I don't even remember what they all were, but those are the three I remember. So, you know, I'm pleading with the cop, like, what are you talking about? No way, you know, I haven't done anything. So he goes, yes, you have. To these charges, you have. Um, so I end up calling a friend of mine that was at the party. He comes, he takes my car for me. The cops come take my car and they end up taking me to jail. I had a $10,000 bond at that time. You know, my first time going to jail like that, this high bond. I'm like, how the hell am I going to get out? I'm in jail maybe like 3 weeks. End up bonding out, you know, within 3 weeks. And when I bond out, I'm dealing with a public defender at that time because I didn't know any better. I didn't know the difference. You know, go get a real lawyer, public. I didn't know. So
Yeah, we'll do a PSA real quick. If you find yourself in this type of situation, if you get jammed up, if you have the means, people, listeners, get a paid lawyer. Like,
yes,
do not mess with a public defender. Now,
yes,
before we get too much further, I got a couple questions about that. Number one,
yeah.
on this time, like how were you not notified that they were after you? Like, did they just not come after you? Obviously, they probably had to have your address. Like, how did they not let you know beforehand that these things were on your record, I guess, or warrant out for your
Well,
arrest?
yeah, well, so here's the thing. When I moved out there, remember when I pawned the TV, I used the address where I was living at that time at that apartment.
Okay,
So
so
I
you
ended up
moved.
moving out. Yeah, and I moved in with my
Oh, okay.
girlfriend,
All
and
right.
the new apartment was under my girlfriend's name. And I
Okay.
never switched the address on my driver's license or anything.
Ah,
So yeah, so since I wasn't out there causing trouble or nothing, I never gotten, you know, in a run-in with the law or anything like that. So that was the reason why, you know. And they said, and it's funny, they did say that they were searching for me, but they couldn't find me for some reason. And at that time, I didn't have a steady job. I was bouncing from job to job to job to
that probably
job.
made it harder.
Yeah, so eventually, I guess they were just like, "Yeah, we'll catch him one day," you know, type of thing. So,
All right, and then you bond out. What did you have to put down? Like what, 20% or something like that? Or they didn't make you the
it
whole
wasn't that much.
10,000,
I
did
think
they?
they put down like, it was like 1,000. I think it was
Yeah.
10%, like 1,000. Yeah, they put a
Yeah.
thousand down.
It's either 10 or 20, depending on, what bail bondsman you go with and the severity of the crime too. If they think you're a risk of
Yes,
bouncing, it might be a little higher,
yes.
but
Oh, you know, and the funny thing is, the person that bonded me out was Bobby Bonds Bells, whatever, Bobby Bonds Bellsman. Now, Bobby Bonds Bellsman, is also the same Bell person that used Dog the Bounty Hunter in all of his
huh,
shows. So every time Dog the Bounty Hunter was in Colorado Springs, because he was always in Colorado, it was for Bobby Bond.
Wow.
Bobby Bell bonds or whatever. It was always for him. So a lot
Huh.
of people don't know that, or So if you mess up on him, you sometimes have the dog looking for you.
Oh, that's not a good sign there. For if the dog is looking for you for sure, especially back in those days, man. He was hot. He would find you.
Oh yeah, him and his whole family. They was on the force.
All right, so you get bonded out. Tell us what happens there, because I was just curious of how that never found you, but I guess that makes sense. If you moved and
Yeah,
you didn't have the job there, that it was kind of harder to track you down. So yeah, tell us. Continue on with that story.
yeah. So like you said, always get a paid lawyer. So I didn't know this. So I'm having a meeting with my public defender. They never asked me my side of the story. She never asked me anything. The only thing, when I met with her, she showed me some paperwork and said, "Listen, if you plead guilty to false information to a pawn shop, they will drop all the rest of the charges and you don't have to go back to jail." Pretty much what she told me. So, of course, that was my first time really in jail. I didn't want to go back. I didn't ask any questions like, if I plead guilty to this, what type of charge? She didn't even tell me what type of charge it was going to be. So, I signed the paperwork. We go to court a few days later, and sure enough, they drop all the charges and I plead guilty to false information to a pawn shop. Come to find out, that was a felony charge. I think it was like a felony 6, the lowest
Wow.
felony you can get. But I didn't know. She didn't even tell me at that time.
Yeah, they
So,
just wanted that conviction, man. They wanted it on their record that they got a conviction and
yep.
scoot you on out the door. That's why most things end and plea deals, because they want to get that guilty conviction and then get you on out the door. And they dangle, especially a new person that have never been to jail. They dangle that. Well, you do this, you don't have to go back to jail. And man, they're looking for a pen as fast as they can fucking find it.
Oh yeah. So she saw me and basically smelled, blood like a shark would. So she know, oh, here's a fresh one. I'm gonna get him.
Yep.
And and she got me. And I had to pay like my restitution. It was like a couple $100, back to the people that the TV came from, and things like that. And they dropped out other charges. Well, I didn't know how bad that one charge was going to hurt me. I didn't know. So I ended up, that was like a wake up call for me. I was like, well, let me hurry up and get this Air Force thing taken care of, because I was kind of lollygagging, life got in the way pretty much at that
Right.
time. So I went to a recruiter, and see, recruiter was like, well, you already took your ADFAP test, you passed, you did well, and everything else, but you have a new charge, a felony charge, and we can't allow you in the Air Force.
Mm.
And man, that crushed my dreams. I was like, what do you mean? Because I always wanted to fly. Top Gun was one of my favorite movies, and
Mm-hmm.
I just always wanted to fly. That was like my dream, was to fly. So when he told me that, I was like, what else am I going to do? So the recruiter goes, you can go try the Army. He goes, I'm not really sure, but I do know that the Army does take some people with certain charges and things like that. So why don't you go try them? So refer me to a recruiter. I went to an Army recruiter. The guy goes, your charge is not violent, but the problem is your charge is recent. So we really can't enlist you because it's just now happened. You're gonna have to wait a few years and then come back again.
Wow.
So yeah, so that hurt the military chances. So I was like, man, well, now what am I gonna do? So I went back pretty much to working. Now, when I was in jail for those few weeks, whatever it was, I started meeting people in jail. Now, when you go to jail, you're like, oh, this guy is cool, this person's cool, and and everybody's innocent in jail. Nobody's
Oh
done
yeah.
nothing, right? Yeah. So you're exchanging phone numbers and stuff like that. So through this whole period while I'm out, I start hanging out with some of the people I met in jail. So I start seeing, basically hanging out with them. They're kind of up to no good, things like that. It wasn't entirely a new world for me because I grew up in LA. I
Right.
just never got in trouble. I had cousins that was on the corner gang banging, serving, doing things like that. But I was always book smart, and they will always keep me in line and say, you're not going to be out here with us in the corner. You're going to go back to school because you're going to have, streets and book smart. We want you to succeed, unlike what we're doing. So I wasn't I was unfamiliar. I just never did it to a full degree like some people were doing. So at that time, I'm hanging out with them. When the military shut me down, I kind of after that had this attitude of like, just like pretty much fuck it. I'm just gonna be out running the streets.
Make the
me
money,
and my
man. You gotta make money.
yeah, me and my girls arguing all the time because I'm never home. I'm out partying. I'm running the streets. I'm messing with all these other girls and making her look stupid. I'm just doing all kind of dumb stuff. I'm 22 years old, I think, at the time, or something like that. Just and just doing all this wild stuff pretty much. Well, at that time, I was working at a company called MCI. And for a lot of people don't know, MCI was just as big as Sprint AT&T at one point. And I was working customer service with them. I was doing pretty good. I would work my 9 to 5 and get off and go party. That's what I did every day, pretty much. Well, one day we show up to work and the building's closed down, shut down. Doors are locked. There's a chain on there and everything. We don't get no reason why or nothing. For people who know now, MCI went through a big money laundry, all kind of things that went on with them. Well, we didn't know at that time, and and it was payday too when it got shut down. And at the time, we were getting paper checks, not deposits. It was paper checks. So to this day, I still never got my check from that place. To this day, never got my check from that place. So we were depending on this check, because we're living check by check. I'm not really out there hustling or anything like that. I'm just kind of just, doing shit I ain't supposed to be doing, but I'm not like serving or nothing like that. So
Right.
my girl at the time was working at a company, and the place she was working at, they actually were shutting down. And they told her pretty much, you got 2 more weeks left and you're done. And at this time, my son was born. So he was born. He was probably about how was he? I think 4 months, 5 months old. So I'm thinking like, oh man, I got to take care of my kid. I got to do this. I was doing some fucked up shit back then, but I always tried to take care of my son. I always was trying to do, things like that. Well, um, so I ended up running into a guy, and the guy that I ran into was like, "Hey, I know this guy who's looking for cars, because everybody knew I was into cars. I love cars. Like to this day, I still love cars." So he's like, "I know this guy. He's looking for cars," and I'm like, "Okay, what? What do you mean cars?" He's like looking for cars, like hot cars. He needs somebody to go get cars for him, and he's willing to pay you." And at first, I was like, "Nah." Then I thought about it. I was like, the movie Gone in 60 Seconds started popping in my head.
Just popped in my head when you said that.
Yeah, I started thinking about that, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's, introduce me to him.
I could see Nicolas Cage popping the lock as soon as you said that. I hear Apollo 44 in my back of my head.
Yeah. So I go there. I have a buddy of mine. He drives me up there. We go up there. I told my buddy, I was like, stay in the car. I'm gonna go talk to this guy because I don't know what's going on. I don't want him to think I'm the police or whatever. So I talked to the guy. Now the guy is a guy from a different country. He had this accent, like this European accent. To this day, I don't know. I didn't know his real name or anything. I never asked any of those questions. So the guy goes, "Yeah, I
Probably
need
smart.
somebody." Yeah. So the guy goes, "I need somebody to take these vehicles for me, hold them, and then we're gonna call you, and then you're gonna drop them off at a location." So I said, "So are these vehicles, they're from regular people? Like I'm taking a car from somebody's driveway?" He goes, "No, they're from dealerships." And he goes, "If you do it correctly, the dealerships, they won't tell on you." So I'm like, all right. And I never asked any questions. So I go back home, and remember, this is two-way pager time.
Mm-hmm.
So he sends me a page with an address, the type of car, and says there's a lockbox on the car, like on the windshield or whatever. He goes, "Go look for it. Go after they close. You'll see it." So I go up to the dealership. I'm looking at all these cars. There's a bunch of cars there. At the point where I'm like, I'm never gonna find this car. I look and I see this blue plastic container on the windshield. I'm like, that must be it. So I go to the car. Sure enough, open it up. There's a key inside. Jump in the car. Start it up. Starts right up. Drive off. Take it home. Sit it in my driveway. I'm waiting. Car sitting there for about 2 days now. I'm like, what the hell? I have to dump this car somewhere. I get another text message, or not text, but a pager, a beep message at the time with an address saying with a location. The location ended up being outside of Denver somewhere. So I had to drive this car an hour from where I was at, drive it up there, meet with the guy again. He gives me some money. Because the funny thing is, I didn't even ask him how much I was going to get paid for all this. So, thinking about it as I got older, I was like, I should have asked him how much I'm going to get paid. I didn't ask any of that. So it gives me like, I think a few $100s. It wasn't even that much. And then I'm like, all right, I take the money, and then I walk off and get in a buddy with my friend. He's like, "So did he pay you?" I'm like, "Yeah, he paid me." And then um I get a pager maybe or beat maybe the next day saying to call a phone number. I call the number and he goes, "All right, I got some more stuff for you. You did it." So the first car was kind of like a test. I think
Right.
he was testing me to see what what I would do and things like that. So he tested me out, and then he starts sending me to get now in Colorado Springs. There's a location called Motor City. Motor City is pretty much almost like a little town of nothing but dealerships. I mean, nothing but big dealerships is there.
Hmm.
Um, so all the dealerships that were in Motor City, a lot of them won't have the same name. So like in say here in Florida, we have, let's say John Smith Ford, John Smith Mitsubishi, things like
Mhm.
that. So a lot of these dealerships I was noticing had the same name associated with it, but it would just be a different brand.
Yeah, we have that here
So,
too in Charleston. It's Rick Hendrick everything. It's Rick Hendrick Dodge,
yeah,
Rick
yeah.
Hendrick Chevrolet, Rick Hendrick Kia, and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think we got a Hendrick down here in Florida too. Actually, in the Miami side, I believe.
Yeah,
Actually,
probably they're into NASCAR and stuff. So that Rick Hendrick name,
yeah,
it's a lot of places.
yeah. So I'm noticing they're all got the same name. So he's sending me now at the point I got to pick up sometimes two cars, sometimes three cars, all within the same night. So I can't do all that myself. So I'm recruiting people now
So now
to
you
help
really
me
are
out.
gone in 60 seconds.
Yeah, they helped me out. There was one time I had three cars sitting. I lived in an apartment building, and there wasn't no assigned apartment or anything like that. But there was one time I had three cars in like different locations of my apartment building, just sitting there waiting for me to take them somewhere else. And I did this for about a good. It was like I think 5, 6 months. I did this for.
Did he up your pay any?
Yeah, actually, he did up my pay. I never so he did up the pay. I was getting paid, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was anywhere around like sometimes 1,500 to 1,200 per car or whatever it
Okay,
was.
that's not terrible. But I was about to say, if you kept doing that for like 200, 300
No.
bucks, now that's not. You're gonna have to come off the hip with some more money if I'm
No.
gonna keep you in the
And then by like the fourth month, the last 2 months, I really wasn't even like touching the vehicles myself. I was kind of just sending them out. They would bring them to me, and then I would get the location, and then I would have guys go drop them off the location for me. So with the last couple months, I wasn't even touching the vehicles. So like I would pocket probably pretty much half that money without doing anything and just pay them off, something. They were like young kids, like 18, 17, things
How
like
many
that or
cars are you doing a week?
we were doing what was it? It wasn't that many, but I want to say probably about maybe 4 to 6 or something like that, whatever. So it wasn't like that many.
Right.
I guess he didn't want to make it too hot. Basically, it was every time the dealership got a shipment in of new cars from off the truck,
Get one of
which
the
was
newer
kind
cars.
of, yeah. So every time the shipment came in is when we went and got the key for it. To this day, I don't know exactly who was connected to give us these keys, but
Somebody
somebody was connected on the inside to do this. So I don't know. To this day, I still don't know
And that
exactly what.
probably bought a lot of time because if they didn't get them in the system and get them in their inventory and all that, by the
Yeah,
time they started doing it, you got 2 or 3 weeks go by until you realize the car is actually missing.
yeah. So and I didn't think about a lot of that until I got older. Because I was like at that time, like I said, 22 years old. So I didn't think about a lot of that. Then
Right.
as I got older, I was like, you know what? They're probably were getting time. That's why the car was sitting in my parking lot maybe for a day or two because we had time, and then we can go drop them off, and the car is probably still not reported stolen. You
Yeah.
know, things like that. And and he also told me never to search through the cars too. So I never knew if there's anything inside these cars. I didn't know what was going on. Never knew.
That could be something too. If they had a
Yeah.
specific car they wanted, something could have been in it somewhere. So you, unbeknownst to you, you may have been transporting, what God knows what in the trunks of those cars.
Who knows, man? So all I know is I was like, don't ever open up a trunk, a hood. He said, don't open up a trunk, hood, glove compartment, nothing. Just get in there, drive. That's all you got to do. He was like, don't even turn on the radio. So just drive. So that's and
Yeah,
I, and
I see where this is going right now, real quick.
hey, and the guy, man, was a guy like you did, like he was a big guy too, about 6'2", 6'3", like I said, big guy from Europe somewhere. He could have he reminded me of like some Russian gangster you would see in the movies. He was
Yeah.
some big guy, and you knew not to mess with him. So I was like, let me follow by the rules.
Don't even want to adjust a mirror, just scared to do anything.
Yeah, just do it. So yeah, I was doing that for a while, and then from there I started. I'm collecting a little bit of money. I'm collecting more money now than when I was doing working my 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm out here partying even harder now than what I was doing. I'm out here running the streets even harder now than what I was doing. I got a little money in my pocket. So now I'm thinking I'm running things. I got a little crew, so now I'm thinking I'm just the shit. I'm like, and then Cairo Springs is like I said, it's a small town. It's not a big city at that time. And I'm a fresh kid from LA, Los Angeles. So I'm like, yeah, I'm running shit. I'm running shit. So that's how my attitude was at the time. And so one day I get a knock on the door, you know, early in the morning, and I go to look at my peephole, and somebody's got their finger on a peephole, can't see through the peephole. So it had to be, I think it was like between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. So I'm like, oh, this has to be the police, you know, has to be the police. Because within that time, I got arrested a few times for stupid stuff, traffic tickets, speeding, things like that. One time they came to my house and picked me up because I forgot to pay one of the traffic tickets or whatever. And that's what they did. They put a hole in and I opened the door. Sure enough, you're under arrest. So I knew the game after that.
Yeah,
So I go look to my boys with me at the time too. I had one of my boys with me. So I look through the blinds and I can see where I had two cars parked that I was waiting to get, sent off. Those cars aren't there, but instead there's two cop cars in their spots. And I'm like, oh shit. First thing I start thinking about is who told on me. That's the first thing I'm thinking. Somebody had to know exactly where these cars are at to tell on me. So they're knocking a little bit more. They leave. There was like four cop cars. I'm looking through the blinds. I can see them leave. I have another window on the side of my apartment. Now this is a 2-story apartment too, like 2 floors up. So I have another window, and me and my boy pretty much jump out the second floor and run. There's a golf course by the apartment. Running through the golf course, we take off.
dodging golf balls and everything. Just
Yeah. So that was my first stint of having some warrants in my arrest, and now I know I'm a fugitive, and I take off. Which this stint didn't last very long. Actually, it didn't last that long the first time around. Oh man. But yeah. So I take off, and I got a warrant for my arrest. I think I'm maybe running from the law for like maybe 2 months, if that, maybe three, something like that. It wasn't that long at all. And I'm with my friend of mine. My friend is AWOL from the army as well, because he was helping me do stuff, but he's AWOL from the army.
that's a
So
serious deal too. Going AWOL, they'll hunt you down
yeah,
for that too.
He went AWOL from the army or whatever. He had some like issues going on where he was at, so he was like, fuck it. And he was at that point in his life, he was just like, fuck it too. So we were gonna go pick up somebody. Um that a person called and asked if we can pick them up. So we're like, sure, let's go pick them up. So we go pick them up, and the place was like a bar, and it's at nighttime. So we pull up in the parking lot, and we're waiting for them. Oh, I'm waiting maybe 3, 4 minutes. Cop pulls up behind us as we're waiting in the parking lot. Cop gets out the car, comes up to the driver. Now I'm not driving the passenger seat. Comes up to my boy and is like, "Can I see your driver's license?" My boy looks at me. He's like, "Shit." So he hands him his driver's license. Cop walks back, and he's like, "Man, this is it. This is it." I'm like, "Not for me, not yet. Not for me, not yet." Yeah, he didn't ask for my license. So cop comes back. Of course, he's like, "Oh, there's a warrant for you, from the military." Pulls my boy out, handcuffs him. So now they're asked. So I think a couple other cops come at this time. They're asking me for my information. I'm giving them a fake name, made up social security number on the spot. I'm saying I ain't got my ID.
Niner 67892.
Yeah. So the cop, he knew it was fake because he keeps asking me my social over and over and over again to see if I would slip up.
You can't remember it. Did you
Yeah,
remember it?
yeah, well actually I have a very good memory. So
Okay.
I didn't slip up. I kept giving the same one, but the problem is they would run back and not find anything. They're like, nothing comes up under this. You're lying.
You're not gonna find anything.
Yeah, you're not gonna find nothing. So eventually they dragged me out the car and they pepper spray me, handcuff me. I'm trying to resist arrest. They end up taking me to jail. And then so I go to jail again. This time I'm in jail a whole lot longer because my bond I think was like 25 grand at first. Yeah. So I'm in jail this time. Um, go to jail, and I think I sat there for maybe 4 months, 5 months, something like that.
Mm.
And I'm still dealing with public defender at this time because I still don't know better, right? So
Now, is the
some.
car stuff over at this point? Or are you kind of out of the car game?
Well, here's the thing: the car stuff was still kind of going, but I didn't know it was going. Let's just put
Okay.
it that way. Because remember, they were kind of, doing stuff, and
Right.
at that point, our hands are kind of off. So
Hmm.
I didn't know what was going. So anyway, I'm in jail, end up bonding out of jail or whatever. Now, when I go to court, I only have two auto theft charges, and it was for the two cars that was in that parking lot, and that
That's
was
all they
it.
know about.
That's
Okay.
all they know about, and that's all they can. I guess they can prove. So I go to jail now, or I'm sorry, I'm going to court and I'm fighting these two auto theft charges, and I think a theft charge too, or something like that. I can't remember exactly. So I end up pleading guilty to the two auto theft charges, and they want to put me on probation for 3 4 years, supervised probation or whatever it is. So I go on probation, and they don't give me no prison sentence. Oh no, sorry. Actually, at this time they wanted me to do a what do you want to call it, a work release program. It was work release at that time actually.
Okay.
So work release, you go to work, and you turn yourself back in,
At the
you
end of
know
work.
at the end of work or whatever.
Now, real
So
quick, did they
yeah.
hit you with stolen or vehicle theft? Wouldn't that have been just stolen property, or they knew that you actually stole the car?
Well, see, the thing was, like I said, I was young. I didn't know. Well, they hit me with two vehicle thefts. It was auto thefts. What I have, which I still have on our record to this day, the two auto thefts for those two cars. And so I didn't know at that time. You can either plead down because they never caught me red-handed. They
Right.
never
That's what
caught
I'm
me
saying.
with a
Technically, you
vehicle.
just had possession of a stolen vehicle, which isn't
Yeah,
quite as serious.
yeah. And not only that, there was no assigned parking in my parking building.
So they
So
didn't
if I
even
had
know
a
it was you.
Yeah, so if I really knew better and I was smart about it, I could have fought those charges. They never saw me in the vehicle, never was caught in the vehicle. Matter of fact, even when they ran the fingerprints, my fingerprints weren't even in the vehicle. It was somebody else's fingerprints that weren't even on, they didn't have on file
Oh, yeah, you
or
could have
whatever.
beat that.
Yeah, I remember seeing that at my discovery, but I'm dumb, public defender. I don't know better. I'm thinking, oh, and my public defender's like, oh, you got caught, and things like that. So I plead guilty to these auto theft charges, and so they want to put me on a work release program. So I get on a work release program, and I'm doing that for maybe about 3 to 4 months, something like that. So I go to work. I wake up 6 in the morning. Leave was like, so Colorado Springs had two separate jail facilities at this time. You had your new one, and you had an old one, which was downtown. The old one, they called that Gladiator School. All the murderers and everything else would be there. There's no guard in there with you or nothing. You're pretty much fighting tooth and nail for your commissary every day.
Yeah.
And that's where your work release program was too. So they would mix you in with that, or, or whatever. So people in work release are like, oh, I'm glad to get out. So 6 a.m. comes, we're all leaving like, yes, and we will have to come back pretty much to the jail and turn ourselves back in that same night at like 9 o'clock at night or something like that. So I'm working at a grocery facility, actually Kroger's. It was warehouse, just they distribute groceries to
Yeah.
all the
Distribution
Kroger.
center type thing.
Yeah, distribution. So I'm working at one of those places. So I'm working there. One day I go to work, and a guy that I was friends with, he got in trouble at work. I can't remember exactly what happened, but then I got involved with that, and my manager was like, "Okay, you guys can just take the fucking day off, go home." So I don't go back and turn myself in. I'm like, nah. So I go hang out with some friends.
This is a vacation day right here.
Yeah, pretty much. I go to my boy's house. He's drinking and everything, and I'm like, give me some. I'm, I'm drinking too. I'm getting fucked up. We're drinking, and that time comes where I gotta turn myself in. Now I'm lit. I'm drunk as hell. So I'm drunk as hell. Um, I go back to turn myself in, and they used to do random breathalyzers.
Bullshit.
So there's a lineup, and we're in a line. You go through these glass doors, and like they weren't secure doors. You can walk in like you're walking into like a doctor's office and walk back out if you want to. So you're walking into the glass door, and I happen to look and I see them get people getting breathalyzed. I'm like, oh shit, not me. So I left and just never went back. And from there I went to Vegas.
How do you, how do you get from there to Vegas?
Well, I had a car that I was driving. You weren't supposed to drive yourself, but I used to park this car like blocks down the street, get on a bus, and act like I was taking the bus. You know, so I left, end up getting in the bus to my car, got in my car, and I had some money because I was working in, in my pocket and stuff like that. And I ended up driving to Vegas because I had some family members in Vegas, things like that. And I knew if I didn't turn myself in at 9 o'clock, I'm gonna be in trouble anyway. So I was like,
Yeah.
fuck it. I learned from the first time not to stay in town. I'm leaving. So
You see him giving the breathalyzer, you just like, nah.
I was like, nah.
Nah.
Turn around and left. And I did it so nonchalantly too. It wasn't like I ran. I was kind of looked like and just turned around and walked out. Like I'm in the wrong spot.
You're supposed to be here.
Sat waited at the bus stop for another 10 minutes and everything right across the street and took the bus down to my car. Like nothing was wrong. But yeah, went to Vegas, man, after that and lived life in Vegas for about a good 6 months, 7 months, whatever it was.
Now, so when you're in Vegas, you stay there for about 6 months. Does the trouble find you after that? Do the cops find you? How does it, what happens from there?
Well, I'm in Vegas and I'm laying low. I'm not doing nothing bad. Every once in a while, I would go out and party at a club or something like that. But I wasn't doing nothing bad. I wasn't running the streets. I wasn't hanging out with nobody really. I was hanging around pretty much like females, really. Girls I knew that wasn't out there gang banging and hustling.
Yeah.
So at this time, I'm like, let me hang around some people that aren't doing anything bad. So about 7 months later or something like that, I get a call from one of my friends, and he goes, "Hey, man," he goes, well, "my friend that's in Colorado." He's like, "You're all over Crime Stoppers," and I'm like, probably.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Man, no." He's like, "There's an award out for you," and he's like, "It's serious," because he said the award was like 5 G's or something like that or whatever, right?
Ooh.
So usually when awards that big, if for some serious stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah.
5 G's. I was like, for not turning myself back into the jail. he's like, no, they have. He's like, you got an escape charge. So now they give you an escape. I'm like, oh. he goes, he goes, and then I guess there was a burglary charge on me and some other charges. He was sitting in the courthouse getting ready to pay a traffic ticket. And when you're sitting there, there's a wall of all these wanted people from Crime Stop. He looks over and he sees me. That's how he sees me. Then I ended up being in the newspaper. I think I was in there like 2 times, 3 times, or something like that as well. In the Crime Stopper section, I'm in that section too. So I'm like, shit. Now I really have to lay low. So I lay low for I lay low for about another month. Now don't forget I have my son at this time. So my son maybe is about a year old or something. He's still in Colorado Springs. So my son's mom calls and he ended up being really sick. And she's like, yeah, he's really sick. He's in the hospital. And, I really need some support. So I'm like, man, I'm thinking I can't sit here. I'm going to be selfish if I sit here, no matter what happens, I got to go make sure and go check up, on him. So I ended up driving back to Colorado. It's about a 12-hour drive, from Vegas to Colorado. I'm doing a speed limit, make sure I don't get pulled over, things like that. Driving back to Colorado. End up staying with a friend of mine and some other friends that had a big house there. So we're staying there. I'm staying there. Now, when I first got back, I was only supposed to be there. My goal was only be there for a couple days, make sure everything was cool, see if she wanted to come back with me to Vegas. If she wants to come back, let's all drive back. I'm out. Didn't happen that way. Ended up being there for about 3 weeks or whatever it was, maybe even a little longer. So around the 3rd week happens. I wake up. This is a 2-story house. I'm on the 2nd floor. For some reason, I'm up early, like 6:30 in the mornings. I don't even know why. We were partying the night before at the house too, but I'm just up early. And I happen to hear a knock at the door at 7 a.m., that police knock. And I'm like, oh shit, here we go. So I look out the window of the back of the house because I was going to jump out the back window, and I see a cop in this person's yard, a cop in that person's yard, cop in that person's yard. I can kind of see a street and I see a bunch of cops lined up with cop cars. And I'm like, oh shit, what the hell's going on, man? And I ended up running through the house. I get to the basement. In Colorado, all the houses have basements. So I get to this basement, go into this closet. Inside this closet, there's also a crawl space inside the closet that's hidden behind like a slab of wood. And the crawl space is not that big. And I'm a skinny guy, so I can fit right through it. And I put that wood back where it's supposed to go. And there was like some sort of gas pipe or something. And I crawl up this gas pipe and I'm underneath a stairwell in the house. And when you first walk in the house, you go walk up the stairs. So I'm underneath right there. I hear everybody coming in and out. I can hear everything. So they keep knocking. My friend opens up the door. Cops are like, search warrant. They're coming in the house. They're not saying what the search warrant's for. They're just searching. So they're searching everywhere. They're in that house for about a good maybe 30 minutes. They're in the house for a long time.
You're just hanging on this fucking pipe.
I'm just hanging on the pipe. Hanging on the pipe, bro. Hanging on the pipe. So eventually, the cop starts asking, so my real name, my real like government name is Rafael Pate. That is my government name. So they're asking, do you know where Mr. Pate is at? Now, I never went by my name on the streets. So a couple people in the house are like, who the fuck is that? Who is this? We don't know Rafael Pate. So I guess they start showing pictures. I don't hear anything. And then I hear the cop go, this guy. And they're like, oh, yeah, we don't know or whatever. I start hearing a bunch of excuses. So they keep searching. So I'm in a pipe and all of a sudden I hear that little, the closet door open, and then I hear them come into the closet, where I'm hiding at. And I can see there's a little crack underneath the wood of the crawl space where I'm at. So I see a flashlight and I'm like, oh shit, damn. He leaves. And then he's gone for about 10 minutes. And then I hear a bunch of whispering from above the stairs and I'm at. And I'm like, who's whispering? And sure enough, when the whisper stops, they come back. And then you hear a dog come in.
Oh shit.
Yeah, they moved they moved a piece of wood. I'm looking down. I see this dog's head pop through the hole. The dog looks at me. I'm looking at the dog, and I'm like, "Oh shit!" The dog looks at me. We're staring at each other for about a good few seconds. The dog leaves. Doesn't bark. Doesn't bite or nothing. I'm like, "Wait, is the coast clear? What the hell just happened? What the hell?" And all of a sudden, I see a flashlight come close to the hole. This big old fat cop's trying to squeeze through the hole. He looks up and he goes, got him. Here he is. He's grabbed me by my leg, pulls me down from the pole. Worst part is, man, they were so pissed. They have the dog attack me. The dog attacks me. They're handcuffing me. They got me hog-tied. Dogs bite me on my thigh. There was broken glass in the basement from, I don't know what it was from, but they're dragging me through this broken glass. So I'm getting cut up everywhere. They pull me out. I'm bleeding, got dog wounds on me. Detective comes at me, holds the picture to my face. We got him. Here he is. We got him. Like, I'm just this big reward. I'm just capturing those big fish they just captured. And I'm like, damn, all this over some cars, and I didn't want to get a breathalyzer. That's what I'm thinking in my head, So they end up taking me. They end up taking me away. I have no shirt on, no shoes. I can put nothing on. I'm bleeding. They take me away. They take me to this parking lot that was like a abandoned parking lot. Have an ambulance meet up with them or whatever. And at that time, I didn't know why they were doing it. But as I got older, I realized they didn't want people to know that they let the dog bite me. And
yeah, they didn't want you showing up all banged up and beat up.
Yeah, so they meet him in this abandoned parking lot with the ambulance. Paramedic gets out. And paramedics like, what happened to him? And the cops like, don't worry about it. Just make sure he's okay. So they're looking at my wounds. They'll throw some peroxide and everything else on it. He's fine, good to go. They take me to the jail. For some reason, I don't go right into booking right away. They take me into an interview room. I'm like, all right, whatever. Sit me down. I sit there for about maybe 5 minutes, and one cop comes in there and or detective, and he's like, so he starts asking me all these dates. Where were you at this date? Where were you at this date? And all the dates were like I was in Vegas for. It wasn't even the end. I was like, I'm like, I don't know. I'm playing dumb, whatever. And then they're like, well, this date such and such happened. Like, these people got robbed, held hostage in their house, and everything else. Don't even know. And I'm like, they're like, where were you at this time? I was in Vegas, dodging y'all. Y'all can prove that I was. I wasn't even in the state, so you can't get me for any of that.
That's good. So they were were they using that as a tactic to get you to say where you were? Were they really trying to pin that on you?
Well, they were trying to. So come to find out, remember you asked that question about were the cars still going on?
Mm-hmm.
So the guys that were still doing the cars, they kept doing it even after I left, and then they got really deep and start doing other shit. So they started like robbing, like doing home invasions in houses. They held a couple people hostage in their house. One even had an attempted murder charge. It was all kind of stuff that they were involved with that was going on, and it was after I left. So they were doing all this stuff, and then one of the kids got caught because one of the kids was only like 17 or something like that. So when he got caught, he told on everybody. And then when everybody got, questioning, some people start saying that I was the ringleader because I was the one that started everything. So they start tying me, thinking I was the one that was directing them to do this and do this and do that.
And you weren't
So
even in the state anymore.
yeah, and I wasn't even talking to them because I didn't even know what they were still doing. So the guy goes, you willing to take a lie detector test? I'm like, yeah. So I take a lie detector test, I pass, and then they end up dropping all those charges extra. It was like an extra something like 17 felony charges because
Jeez.
of yeah, I was looking at time. Put it this way, one of the guys ended up getting a plea deal for I think 72 years. And then
72 years.
72. Well, when you hold somebody hostage in some
Right.
states, that's
That's
a
a
life
big deal.
sentence.
Yeah.
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 They did it to like 4 or 5 people. And then one person was like an elderly couple or something like that.
Yeah, that's a
So
lot of time, man, when you hold somebody hostage in a house. And even sometimes,
yeah.
like, not even if you're actually holding them hostage in that way. Like, I've heard of some cases where there's like a dispute and you're just not letting that person leave. Like, say it's an argument between a
Oh
husband and a
yeah.
wife. They can put a kidnapping charge on you if you just don't let them leave the house. Keeping somebody somewhere against their will is technically kidnapping.
Yeah, I even heard some states that guys called. I think the what is it, the 1 foot rule or 2 foot rule. If you take somebody and move them 2 feet or something like that,
Yeah.
that can be considered hostage against their will. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's a life sentence for that. I was like,
Yeah.
you might as
That
well just
time can
kill them.
end up
What?
quick if you ain't careful.
Yeah. So and then the kid who was 17, he was turning 18, so they tried him as an adult. I think he got 33 years. After he
Wow.
snitched on everybody, he still got 33 years still.
Jeez.
So yeah, they got some time, man. They got time. So but they luckily they dropped all that stuff on me. They proved I wasn't in the state. So I had all that, proof. I had to call family members, like tell them that, I was hiding at your house and please tell them,
I'm
please.
being serious. Don't lie for me. Just tell him I was really there.
Tell them I was hiding, man.
You got
So
some of them probably trying to play along. Nah, he wasn't here. I don't know what you're talking about. He wasn't there.
yeah. So I'm sitting in jail, and there's now while I'm sitting in there, there's another auto theft charge that pops up on me too. Another one as well, because when I was at that house, hiding out, the house I got caught in, I had a car there, and then that car was stolen, actually. So that car was in the garage, and the funny thing about it was, I used the car to get to where I was going, got the car for somebody, garaged it, and somebody else was supposed to come pick it up for me and whatever they wanted to do. And they never picked it up, it just stayed in that garage. Well, when everything went down, I got arrested. I guess everybody in the house told them that that's my car, and so that got pinned on me. So now I have a third auto theft charge, and I'm trying to avoid the 3 strikes rule that they have with similar charges that goes on out there. So I'm messing around with this girl at the same time, and I tell her, "Hey, I need you to say this car doesn't belong to me. I need you." Well, anyway, she ends up telling on me. Now I get another felony for tampering with a witness. Yeah, my luck was not going good, man. It was not going good. So I'm up to about 5 felonies now.
Eesh. We're
So
gonna get to the good stuff in a minute. It's gonna circle around.
yeah, so I ended up going to court. This time I don't bond out. My bond's so high, I had to stay in jail. I'm in county jail for maybe for like 9, 10 months or something like that. End up taking the plea deal, end up getting 10 years prison time, which
Oh,
was my original sentence. So they gave me 10 years prison, and but the judge goes, something about you. You don't seem like the regular street person that's in here. You talk well for yourself. I'm going to recommend you for a prison boot camp program. He goes, you're nonviolent and you have to be recommended. They don't have that program no more. It's gone. But at that time when I was in prison, they had it.
I
So
got
he
a
goes,
feeling I'm about to find out why it's gone.
yeah, yeah, they didn't. It was no joke, man. So he goes, I'm gonna recommend you to that program. If you graduate, you come back to me. I'll reconsider you for a lighter sentence or something else. So I was like, all right. So end up going to prison. I'm in a regular prison facility, I think, for about 3 or 4 months. You're waiting. From there, they shipped me to South Park, Colorado. There's a real South Park. I didn't even know about that. So yeah, there's a real South Park, ladies and gentlemen. It's real. I was in the prison there, so it's real. So I'm in the prison at South Park, Colorado for another 2 months. They transfer me to another place. I finally get to the boot camp facility. Now we arrived with a few busloads of people. It was about a good 100 of us. 100. Out of the 100, there was 4 females. No, I'm sorry, 3 females. 3 or 4, something like that. Wasn't that many. It's 3 or 4, I know. So we get there. As soon as we arrive, this big old guy gets on the bus. Everybody sit down and shut up. Nobody's shutting up. Everybody's hard, tough. So he's got this bill, the military hat on. Comes
Mm-hmm.
up to the very first guy, does like that right in the bridge of his nose, cuts it right open. Blood starts gushing down. We all shut the fuck up and sit down. We shut the fuck, we sit down. And he's like, now that I got your attention. So yeah, it was no joke. They based their tactics off the old school 50s and 60s Marines basic training,
Wow.
actually. And as far as I know, even the Marines don't do the 50s and 60s basic training no more. I guess it was too harsh. So they don't do that no more. They used to do so there we were doing stuff like we would run maybe 3 or 4. They would say put on all your clothes. Every single piece of clothing you have. So you would have 3 uniforms, prison uniforms. You got to put that on. You would have thermals. You got to put all your thermals on. You got to put your winter jacket on, your beanie, your boots. And then it would make you run up and down these stairwells with about 40 or 50 of you, and maybe a 4-story, 3-story stairwell. So
Damn.
it gets hot in there, and feel like you're about to die, and you're running. Then when you think it's over with, they make you drink. You have a canteen of water, and you have to down that whole canteen. Got to down it, and you down it, and now your stomach's hurting, and they make you run again. Now everybody's puking. And it was not easy, man. It was tough. It was tough. We did that for about 5 months.
Damn.
5 months we did that for, man. The whole philosophy was the first 2 months they break you down to nothing. Like they would talk about your mom, your kids, whatever they could to get to you. They would break you down, and then they would start building you back up to like a new person. That was their whole philosophy.
Okay, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, so like towards the end, I give respect. Those people, those drill sergeants, they actually like they seem like they cared about you more than just going to prison. You
Right.
know, because let's say if you had an issue or a problem, you can actually go talk with them, and they would actually sit down and talk with you. And they wouldn't just let you quit too. So there was tons of people. Only 22 of us out of that 100 graduated, by the way. Only 22 graduated. All the girls made it. Every girl made it. 3 or 4 girls, there was, they made it. All the
Around a 20% success rate with that thing.
Yes, and all the big gangsters and stuff, they left. They left early. They said they'd rather go to prison and do their time. So they left, but they wouldn't let you quit though. So you literally had to try and quit about 3 or 4 times before they said, "All right, you can leave." So you would say you quit, and they would yell at you and tell you, "All right, you're done," and they would send you to a room, but then they would go talk to you like 2 hours later after you cool off, and trying to ask you, do you have a family? You should do this for your family, things like that. So they wouldn't let you quit. It was pretty cool. The situation wasn't cool, but you know
Right.
what I mean. It was better than being in prison overall.
Right. You
So
actually felt like somebody was kind of looking out for your end game, so to speak.
yeah, yeah, it was, and then you did you had to go to school, you had to go to drug classes. They made you take a janitorial class. They made you get OSHA certified. They made you do a lot of things inside of there that way when you came out, you had something like, productive to lean on or
Yeah,
whatever.
something to go on, some type of skill to use in the workforce out there.
Yeah, so like every day we had a class. We went to church. We even went to Jehovah Witness church. We went to all these different churches. Even if you had a high school diploma, they still made you take the GD classes and take the GD test. They made you like do something productive. And no time was wasted, pretty much. So it was all right. But so I graduate, and when I'm graduating, I'm sitting there waiting. I'm waiting for my reconsideration date. So sergeant comes in and goes, "Hey, the counselor wants to see you in the counselor's office." So I'm like, "All right." So I go walk to the counselor, open the office. The counselor's sitting there. Now the counselor's sitting there, and then there's a person from the church there, the chaplain or whatever. He's sitting in there too. And I'm looking like, what's going on. So she goes, "You need to sit down." So I sit down, and she goes, "We got information last night that your family was in a car accident." And I was like, "My family?" She goes, "Yeah, your mother, your son, and your son, they were in a car accident." And the first thing I'm saying is they're okay. And she starts looking at him. She goes, "I don't know how to tell you this, but your son didn't make it." And at the time he was 3 years old, actually. So he just turned 3. Last time I saw him, they actually came out to my graduation for the boot camp. So they actually got to see him for that. So I graduated, he put on like a marching parade, things like that. She drove him out there so he can see me, graduate. But yeah, she said he, didn't make it. So right after she tells me, and we try to call the hospital, I can't get through. And she goes, "Sorry, but I have to send you back." So I was only there with maybe 5 or 10 minutes with her, and then they have to send me right back to reality.
Damn.
No time to yeah, no time to grieve or pretty much anything.
Yeah, because that's a lot to process. I mean, I can't imagine getting that news, and then like you said, and then on top of that, not being able to call and check up on your baby's mom and things like. Was that your wife or that was just a girlfriend there?
Yeah, we weren't married.
Okay.
And the car accident was pretty because she broke her nose actually, so she was actually in the hospital herself. And they did let me make a call, but we couldn't get through. And I guess she said I only had a certain amount of time, and she's got to send me back. And she's like, "I'm sorry." And so I went back. The drill sergeants found out, and they all came up to me one by one. Actually, was like, "Hey, if you need space, we can put you in this room over here, be by yourself." Things like that. So I mean, they were, they know they couldn't do a lot, but they were trying to do what they could. So
Right.
they ended up his funeral. They let me go to his funeral. And a couple of the drill instructors actually requested that they can take me. So went up driving. I think it was like I was in a place that was about 3 hours away from Colorado Springs. So they drove me 3 hours to go to his funeral. I did attend his funeral. One of the hardest thing I ever did in my life, even still to this day.
Oh, I can't
So
imagine.
yeah, man, it was very hard. So go back. When I go back, everybody in the whole place pretty much knows what happens to me. Even the other inmates. Actually, we were called cadets. They call us cadets. They want to call us the inmates. So all the cadets knew what's happened. I get there, they're all giving me like a standing ovation, pretty much. Pretty touching actually.
Yeah.
So my reconsideration date comes up. I go back to Colorado Springs. I go see the judge. Judge finds out what happens. And not only that, I have all these recommendation letters from every single sergeant that was there. And when I graduated, I also graduated as a squad leader too. So I have like honorary letters and stuff. So they're reading all these letters. The DA stands up for me. He's like, "Hey," the DA's like, "I've seen the boot camp in person." He's like, "This program is no joke." He not just graduated, but he graduated with honors, as a leader. So he's like, "I recommend him to actually, not be in jail anymore, not prison." So they recommended me from a 10-year sentence down to 4, and with time served, and to go serve the rest of my sentence at a halfway house. So all right, I'll take that. So I went to the halfway house. Now the halfway house is only about 15 minutes away from where my son's buried at, and I never got to see his grave or where he was at. I got to go to his funeral, but I had to stay in the back. I never got to really go touch him or, you know, or any of that stuff. But the cast got to stay in the back because of security reasons, obviously. So I go to the counselor that's in the halfway house, and you know, I ask her and I say, "Hey, I don't know if you know my story, but my son passed away while I was waiting to get here, and he's only buried 15 minutes down the street. I would like to go see him. I need to make peace because I still never got time to grieve or any of that. There's nobody to talk to. Nobody can console you because nobody knows how you feel. So it's like I'm by myself pretty much, you know, and I'm also maybe what, 24, 23. I can't remember, but I'm young, so I don't know what to do. So my counselor goes, I tell you what, if you go get a job, excuse me, and you make your first months of rent payment, pay some of your fines and your restitution, show me that you're doing something, then I'll let you go. No problem. Next day, I go out and find a job. Day after that, I go out and find my second job. I'm working a morning job and a night job. I come back to the halfway house to sleep for 3 hours. That's it. I'm out working. About a month and a half goes by, get my first checks. I give them all to the halfway house. Here's rent. Rent's covered for the next month and a half. Use the rest restitution, whatever you got to do. Can I go, you know, see my son now? Lady goes, I'm sorry, but I can't let you go. Why? You told me I could, because he's buried at a graveyard, and you're only allowed to go to places that have a landline phone. Because I had to call to check in.
Ah, Christ.
Yeah. So, you know, of course, I'm sitting up here, I'm trying to argue with her. You told me, and she's just looking at me and doesn't say a word after that. Just pretty much stone face. Like, I'm looking at her like, you played me. What, you knew this rule from the get-go. Why did you, you know, or whatever. So I leave out her office. There's a guy at the front desk when you check in. He's like, hey, I heard everything. I'll let you go to the grave. Um, don't be gone that long. Just come back. I'll cover for you. I'm like, all right.
Who's this? Who's this that
There was a
says this?
guy. There was a guy that was working at the front desk. So when you come to the halfway house, you got to check in and let them know you're back. Or when you leave, you
Right.
got to check out. You know. So he's
Yeah.
at the front desk and he heard it all. So he goes, "I'll cover for you," and you just go. He's like, "Don't be long." So I was like, "All right." So this is later in the evening. Go to the grave. There's a cop sitting in front of the graveyard. I go to walk onto the the cemetery premises. Cop goes, "Hey, you can't walk on there. Cemetery's closed." And I'm sitting there like, "Sir, I'm trying to explain to him. My son is over here. I never really got to see his grave. I need to make peace." He's like, "I'm sorry, but the cemetery's closed." So he kind of threatens me after that. So I'm like, so I leave. I go back to the halfway house. I go to check in. He's not there. The counselor is in his spot standing there now. First thing she says is, "You weren't on premises like you were supposed to be. You left and nobody told you to leave, and you weren't allowed to leave. I've already called the authorities. They're on their way. You're going back to prison." You know? Yeah.
Dang.
So I ended up just,
What happened to the counselor that was there that told you to go? You don't know what happened to him?
yeah, I don't even know. I don't know what happened to that guy. I don't know. To
And
this
you
day, I
didn't
never.
say you didn't allow him out. You just kind of took it as it came.
I just took it because I didn't want to tell him. If you
Right.
notice, I never was the type to, if I did something, I was gonna take the responsibility and do it myself. Because there's
Right.
plenty of times I could have told and got out all this. Even with the TV.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't do that. I always grew up taking responsibility for what you did.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do the time, don't do that crime. Pretty much. So it's kind of how I was raised.
That's respectable.
So I didn't tell on the guy or anything like that. Instead, I flip out. I start cursing everybody out there, and I'm throwing stuff, and I'm like, fuck this place, and I end up leaving. Walked right out. The next morning, I end up catching a bus out to Las Vegas.
Oh, so you just leave. You don't wait on the authorities to come get you. You just
No,
fucking
I
bounce.
left. I left. I left. That was my second escape charge, and that's when the whole 15 years of being on the run started. Was
Wow.
Yeah, 50 was when I left Colorado. And first stop was Vegas.
So you went back to Vegas.
Yeah, went back there because I was familiar with it, so I went back there.
And you said you had some people down there too, right?
Yeah, I had some family members, some people down there, so that's why I was familiar, and I knew that they can keep secrets and stuff like that. And
So now
and
is this where you kind of, because at this point, they're looking for you still. Is this where
yeah,
you kind of get this new identity idea? to go from there? Is this kind of where that comes into play?
Well, so in Vegas, I was using like made up name or
Right.
whatever, and so in Vegas, I'm trying to basically figure out what to do next. I'm like, what am I gonna do now? You know, I can't be using this made up name all the time. So I'm trying to think of what to do. So I actually ended up taking a bus and going out to New York. Now I've been to New York a couple times in New York City, so I know it's really big. You can blend in.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
you really have to do something wrong for somebody to mess with you.
Right.
So I'm gonna go out to New York in the summertime. I ain't gotta worry about the winter right now. So I took a Greyhound bus under a fake name because at the time you need no ID. You just give them John Doe and get on
Yeah.
a bus. You go. So I went to New York. I had a little bit of money in my pocket. Go there. Don't know what to do. Don't know nothing. Just had a backpack, and that was it. Wandering the streets. Now, at first, I'm pretty much not knowing what to do. Like I said, I was homeless for the first maybe I would say week or whatever it was. Pretty much on the streets for a week straight, just going from alley to alley and anything I can do. And I'm using the little bit of money I had to buy food, things like that, So I was eating still. I just didn't have a roof over my head and, that type of stuff. And it's summertime, so I wouldn't have to worry about the cold. So first week I'm homeless. So at this point, I'm thinking like, what the hell am I gonna do? Life is over with. Fuck it, it's over with. So I ended up making friends with a couple of the homeless people that were there, and one of the guys, I noticed he always had a lot of pain, and he was taking, I think it was Vicodin or whatever, taking a lot of Vicodin all the goddamn time. So I was like, hey man, I got $20 if you want to give me your Vicodin pills. Of course, he's like, yeah, sure, gives me the rest he have. Man, I end up taking I don't know how many pills. 'Cause I was just trying to end it all at
You're
that
trying to
point.
overdose.
Yeah, I was trying on purpose because I thought the way I was thinking at that time was if I failed my not just my life, but I failed my son's life because I was blaming myself. If I wasn't in prison, maybe that accident wouldn't have happened. Because my son's mom, the reason why the accident even happened, she had to drive him to the babysitter's house so she can go to work. But if I was there, she wouldn't have had to drive him. He would have stayed home with me. So I've always blamed myself for that. He died because of me. So I'm just trying to end it all at that point. So take the pills, ended up, next thing you know, I'm just waking up in some medical facility. Wake up. I'm in downtown New York, waking up, and then doctor comes in, or nurse, head nurse, whoever comes in, then they start giving me that little psychiatric thing, making sure that everything's okay. They leave. I think I'm there for about 2 days, and just a light bulb went off. And I was like, you know what? I'm living life the wrong way. Why would I want to live like I have no purpose in life? I should live like how I wanted my son to live. If he was here, how would I want him to live his life? I want him to go to school, college. I want him to get a degree. I want him to live a good life. So why don't I just start living life for him?
Mm-hmm.
you know so it just dawned on me. So psychiatrist came in. I got back on my A game, and he's like, hey man, you're actually a smart kid. I don't know what the hell happened. So they ended up releasing me because New York's a lot of people, they got a lot more stuff to worry about. They released me. So I'm still homeless at this time. I ended up walking past an apartment building. I saw this guy walking in and out with paint cans. So I asked the guy, I said, can I help you paint? And he goes, yeah, I'm painting this apartment, but I don't have money to pay anybody. And I said, that's fine. If I have promised to help you paint, can I just sleep there for the night? And he goes, yeah. So I ended up helping this guy paint and do some odd stuff around this apartment for the next probably like 3 or 4 days. And he let me sleep there every night. So at the end of the week, he tells me, um, I was gonna rent this out to somebody else, but they end up getting to a new place because I took too long. But I rent it out to you. I know you don't have the money, but the first 30 days are free. If you can come up with rent after 30 days, the place is yours. So I was like, all right. So I went out in the streets and I'm thinking like, how am I going to get a job? I can't get a job with my real name. Now at this time, I threw all my real stuff out. I don't have nothing that has my real name on me. So I have no sort of like ID or anything.
Wow.
So I go back to where all the homeless people were at, and I'm like, hmm. So I walk up to this one kid. He was a little younger than me, and I'm like, hey man, what's your name? He tells me his name. And I'm like, hey, I don't have a lot of money on me, but can I use your name and I'll pay you? And I'm like, do you have any warrants for your arrest or anything like that? He goes, no, I don't have anything, whatever. He wasn't even from New York. He was from some other state. I forgot. I think Maine or something. And
Wow.
then, yeah, I think I gave him like whatever I had, like $50 or $60 or something like that. And he's like, he goes to give me his ID. I'm like, no, I don't need your ID or whatever. He had his ID from Maine. I'm like, I don't need your ID. I just need to use your name, social security, and your mother's maiden name, things like that, to where I can, order your birth certificate. So he gives me all that information. I go back to the apartment, order his birth certificate, get the birth certificate in, walk to a social security place after that, walk in there. Now I got a social security card. So now I got the two forms that I need for ID. New York, they were thumbprinting you for your driver's license, I think, at the time. I'm not sure, but something told me not to do it there, to try and find a state to get an ID and it doesn't connect, because not all states connect.
Right.
So I found out North Carolina, they don't thumbprint and they didn't connect. So I got on the Greyhound bus. It's not that far from New York City, and then went to North Carolina, got the ID.
That's in Raleigh you were talking about?
Yeah, in Raleigh. Yeah, got the ID. I stayed for about because you had to have your ID for a certain length of time, I think, before you got your driver's license. I can't remember exactly what the deal was with that, but I remember I had to stay for like a couple days.
Mm-hmm.
So got the ID. Went and got the cheapest Motel 6 I can find. Stayed in Motel 6 for like 2 nights. Went and got my driver's license, and then went back to New York. And then went and got a job. I was working actually at the airport of all places, JFK Airport. Got hired there to be an assistant manager at a car rental place actually. And so the part comes up to where they're like, yeah, you have to do a background check. And I'm like, oh, okay. Hopefully this guy doesn't have any
Hopefully he told you the truth.
yeah, hopefully he told me the truth. So they did the background check, nothing came up. I'm like, thank God, yes, get a job. So I'm working there for a little bit. I was in New York for about a good, I would say, 8 months or 9 months. I was there for a while.
Now, were you worried at all about anybody finding you there, or you were pretty confident that they didn't really know where the hell you were at this point?
No, at first I was worried. So even like when I went and got the ID, oh man, I was sweating balls in that DMV. Yeah, I was looking for every exit point in that DMV I can find, just in case the lady went to the back and took too long.
You got to dart out because you know she's probably calling somebody.
Yeah, I'm looking for air. I'm like, oh man.
And they tell you to
So
hold on, just fucking go. Don't wait,
oh
just
yeah.
fucking go.
Because at this point, I got a reputation for running off, so I'm not staying around. I'm leaving. Might as well leave again. So at this point, I'm like, man. So at first, I was, I think maybe the last couple months in New York, I started doing more stuff. I'm going out making friends. I'm kind of getting used to it now, or whatever. So I ended up, I was like, I want to go to school. I want to go get a degree, a business management degree, because I always wanted to start my own business, but I didn't know what the hell to start. So like, let me go get a business management degree. But how am I going to do that? I don't have any transcripts or nothing. Um, I don't know if this guy's got transcripts. I never even asked if we graduated school. What am I going to do? So I ended up meeting this guy. The guy is from Canada, and he's like, yeah, I'm from Canada. And he's like, oh, Americans are welcome up there all the time. Go up there easily and get your visa. And I'm like, seriously? He's like, yeah, it's easy. He's like, at that time, you didn't even need a passport to cross the border. You can just cross with your driver's license. So he's like, yeah, you can go up there and go to school as long as you got a student visa.
You didn't need a passport to get into Canada back then.
No, they
Now,
changed
what
that.
time frame is this?
This is like 2005-ish, 5-ish,
Okay.
2006 actually, it's 2006, early 2006. They changed that law 2008. See,
Okay.
after the 9/11 happened, Bush changed it, but it didn't take effect until 2008 or
Okay.
something like that or whatever. Like right when he left office, I think Obama came in, is right when it changed or whatever.
Okay. All right.
So,
Okay.
but at that time, you didn't need a passport to go into Mexico or go into Canada. As long as you had a driver's license, you can go back and forth all day long. That's
Okay.
how it was. Unless I think you were flying. If you were flying, then you needed a passport. But if you're driving or walking, just an ID. That's all you needed. So we he tells me about Canada. So I'm like, all right, how am I gonna get this work visa? So in New York, they have the Canadian embassy, or not embassy, embassy, whatever it's called, consulate. I can't remember exactly what it's called. So I go there, And this
U.S.
is
consulate, I think, maybe.
yeah. So I go there and I'm like, this is you have to get your work visa. So I go there and I'm sitting with somebody. I made an appointment. Now, at first, I'm nervous. I'm nervous because I'm trying to get a visa for a country under a name that's not mine. And I'm like, I'm hoping they don't do an extensive background check and everything else. And a guy taught me actually a long time ago when I was doing my crime in Colorado. If you wear a liquid band-aid on you can put liquid band-aid on your fingerprints, put it on some of your fingerprints, it can discourage some of the machines and your fingerprints won't come up or whatever. So I go to the store, I get some liquid band-aid, I put a little bit on my fingerprints just in
Half
case
our
they
listeners just wrote that down, by the way.
It don't work for everywhere. Just let you know. It don't. The machines, I think, catching on now. That's why they rub you with the alcohol before they put your fingers on now. Make sure everything's off. So I'm putting all this stuff on my fingers, like, oh, hopefully they don't fingerprint me. Um, I go through the interview, and the lady goes, "You pass. I'm gonna set you up for another appointment." I'm like, "What?" She could come back in this date, which is like 3 days away. So now I'm confident. I'm like, "Yeah." So I go in there. I tell them again. Now the only reason I had to have a reason to go to Canada. I couldn't just go up and leave and have a visa. I went and got a job at Walmart because I knew Walmart was worldwide. Walmart is also in Canada. So if I worked at Walmart, I can ask Walmart, can I transfer to Canada? And can you be my sponsor? So I went and got a job at Walmart just for that just for that reason. And I had Walmart write me a letter saying they would transfer me and sponsor me up there. So that helped out a lot. So I give them this Walmart or letter from Walmart, and they're like, "Oh, we already have a job. You got a sponsor, and you want to go to school? Okay, we'll give you I think it was a 2-year student visa. We'll give you a 2-year student visa and work visa, and if you want to stay past that, you just have to reapply."
Right.
All right, give me my visa. Off to Canada. Off there, crossing the border, I was sweating. Got to the border. The guy asked for my driver's license. I gave him my driver's license. And he goes, "What are you coming here for?" Oh, my visas. Yeah, that's right. I get my visas out, my backpack, give him my visas. And I'm looking straight ahead. I know the guy thought I knew I'm trying to keep from sweat dripping down my head. He guy's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Man, I'm just nervous." he goes, "Pull over there real quick." I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
shit." Pull over. And then I pull over, and then another guy comes with a dog. He's like, "We just want to check to make sure you're not transporting drugs. You just seem nervous." All right, go round ahead. You sniff all you want. They do the sniff. Nothing. I go on. I'm in Canada now. Now I'm in Canada, and I'm like, every worry that I had, it was pretty much like almost gone after that. I'm like, yeah. So
big sigh of relief, probably.
Oh yeah, it was a big because I knew that marshals aren't in Canada looking for me.
Right.
Yeah, so it was a big sigh of release after that.
So you've made it into Canada. You're going to be going what is the schooling program there?
Yeah, I was gonna go to school there, which I did. So I went and signed up for a schooling program there. Like I said, business management. Also took I signed up for economics as a minor as well. I had to do my micro and macro. I figured economics and business will go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So I signed up for that. We're actually working at Walmart. I ended up getting another job too. I'm working at a restaurant and as a cook in a restaurant. So I got 2 jobs, and I'm going to school. Now I'm doing this for about maybe 5 months, 6 months. I end up getting an apartment as well. Everything. I'm doing well for myself.
You're doing
all right.
all this while on the run. I mean, this is crazy because people don't have this much motivation when they're not on the fucking run. I mean, I can tell just by how you've planned this out. You're a sharp thinking guy. So I mean, that's this whole plan is really genius to be able to pull this off.
So I got an apartment, everything. Now, before I got in trouble, my hobby was music. I was always out either like rapping at shows. I was even a break dancer. I was doing all the stuff music wise, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I got to Colorado, it was kind of lost it because I was busy running the streets and doing everyone else. When I went to Canada and I'm feeling like myself again, I'm like, oh, I'm going to start getting back into music. So I meet like this other kid who's producer. We start doing shows. I'm living just like a regular person, working, doing these shows. I'm doing all kind of stuff, paid gigs for doing this music. I'm meeting some people that like other like rappers who are well known. I'm doing all kind of things or whatever, right? and doing pretty good. So as I'm in Canada, maybe about after my what visa was up for school, I finished school and everything. So I ended up staying still. I'm still working at that restaurant. Now, the guy who managed that restaurant, me and him are still friends to this day. Actually, he's on my Facebook. We're still friends. He hired me under the fake name.
You were given the
So,
fake names here, the fake name of the identity you took of the guy.
yeah, you got it. You got it. So my visa's up. And when my visa's up, I get a visit from immigration. They actually came to the door. They were
Mm,
like, you overstayed your visa. They were like, we're going to need you to go back across the border and reapply. You can come right back, but you can't apply from
over there.
Canada. Yeah, you have to apply from over there and then come back. So
Mm.
much. And then at that time, this is past 2008. Now you need a passport to come back. So I'm like, oh man, what am I gonna do now? So I'm like, I really don't want to go on a run in Canada. Now, if I go to jail here, I don't know. I could be facing all kind of charges now. I don't know.
I've heard
So,
that's probably a better place to go to jail over there in Canada.
oh man, so people were telling me stories about jails there. First of all, they don't have a death penalty. A lot of people don't get life.
Right.
When you go to jail for drugs, they send you to rehab. They don't keep you in jail. They rather send you in rehab and get you help. Um, at this time, weed was not legal there. It's legal there now, but it wasn't legal there. But
Right.
you can walk down the street literally smoking. A cop would just see you until you put it out. They wouldn't waste the time taking you to jail or any of that. 420 to them was a national holiday. So everybody would go to they had like a parliament in Ottawa, Canada, and there'll be hundreds of thousands of people lined up at the parliament, smoking in front of the parliament, and the cops, everybody would allow it. As long as nobody's not causing trouble, you guys can do this on 420. That's how Canadians were. Canadians were some of the nicest people I've actually met in my life, you know?
Yeah. We done a show with a guy. His name was Brian O'Day. And I had seen a documentary on him way before I ever started podcasting, like years ago. And he was out of Canada and he moved, it was like 75 tons of pot in 2 trips on a fishing
Woo!
boat from like
Woo!
Asia back over to somewhere in the States. I forget exactly where, but he done like 25 tons on one trip. The DEA and everybody actually was on to him because somebody in that trip ratted, and still under their nose, it's like he knew that they knew, but they didn't know that he knew. And so he bought like an entire other boat and still made the fucking trip and done the 50 tons, but he like mock done the other one. So they sent the real boat that had the wheat, and then they drove like they were going to get it. Meanwhile, passing the other boat in the water, that one's already coming back fully loaded. They go over there, hang out, bullshit, come back. Everybody surrounds them. There's nothing on the boat, and like the FBI, Coast Guard, all of it was pissed because they basically spent all that time and they got nothing out of it. Now he wound up getting busted later on, but
Oh,
he was
damn.
from over there in Canada. He was a big proponent of getting it legalized over there as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like so. It's their government's a lot different over there. It's night and day. They treat when I was over there, their citizens got treated better than how we get treated here. Let's just put it
Yeah.
that way. So
Okay.
I did. The taxes were high, but you actually saw the tax dollars go to work. There was no
Right.
potholes in the street. The buses, city buses, had their own lanes. Healthcare was free. I went to the hospital a bunch of times. None of it went to my credit. It's free there. You know, your wait is longer, but you don't have to worry about that big bill hitting you and putting a dent in your
Right.
pocket or your credit score. So, you know, I will always love being up there, and I love the people. I met a lot of good friends up there who are even still my friends to this day, even after they found out that, you know, that I wasn't who I said I was, and we're still friends to this day. You know, they actually find it fascinating. They're like, "You're still the same person that we knew. You just had a different name." You know, so there's probably people who's even going to watch this video that I have on my Facebook that probably still don't know and probably going to be like, "Oh, damn."
That's that guy.
I didn't know that. Oh, okay. And I'm gonna get inboxes. So, yeah. So they told me I had to go back. So I'm like, man. So at this point, I'm actually feeling confident in my abilities. I'm almost at the point where I think I can almost do anything. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna cross the border again, and I'm gonna see what happens. So I end up crossing the border, even though you needed your passport at the time. I was an American citizen and still had my birth certificate and all that stuff. They were asking me what was I doing up there, going to school, had paperwork to prove it. And I'm like, all right, welcome back home. Passed through border and Niagara Falls and I'm good to go. I'm like, all right. So then I was gonna start working on now I'm trying to get a passport to go back. I'm like, how am I gonna do that? So I had a relative of mine. He lives in California. He legally changed his name. Legally went to the court and changed his name. So I'm talking to him, and he goes, "Hey," because he knows what's going on, and he goes, "You can use my old name. I still got my social security card and birth certificate. I changed my name legally, but you can use my old name. I'll just send you all that, and you go, I won't tell you. I don't have any warrants, nothing like that." So he sends me all his stuff. So I end up switching my name to his name now, and I'm in New York working. I end up going back over to the airport to get a job again. Funny thing is, under the second name now.
You remind me of this other guy we had here a couple of years ago.
Oh man.
So how long did that job go? You went back to the same job. How long did that last?
I wasn't there long. That job I lasted maybe 6 months, 7 months. I was in New York total for a year though. I was there for a year, but I went back to working at the airport again. So I'm there for about maybe 6 months. Meet a friend that's working at the airport too. They have family down here in Florida. So he was like, "Hey, want to come me to Florida, visit Florida?" Sure, why not? We come down here to Tampa. I see that it's half the cost to live down here. Rent's a lot cheaper. There's no snow, no ice. And I'm like, what am I doing in New York? So I went back to New York, packed my car up, came down here. This was 2011. I actually left New York a week before Hurricane Sandy hit it.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like 2011-ish is when I moved down here. So I moved all my friends were like, "Why are you going to Florida? There's hurricanes." And Sandy hits up there a week later, you know.
Yeah, so much for that.
Yeah. So come down to Florida, living just like a regular citizen. At this time, I'm not even thinking about trying to go back to Canada, actually.
Right.
I'm thinking about, I can just live here now. I'm using my relative's name. Everything's good. I don't get into trouble. I'm working 2 different jobs again. I'm down here in Florida because I realized there's a lot of real estate opportunity. So I was like, I want to try and get a real estate license. I can do that under his name because there's no criminal records. And in Florida, you can't get your real estate license if you have all these felonies and things like that.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm gonna try and get my real estate license. I'm gonna live life. I'm gonna build an empire. I'm gonna start my business and things like that. Just didn't know what business I wanted to start at first. I just had all these ideas, but didn't know how to execute them.
Right.
So I'm working and everything, and then I started getting into the industry of start selling cars. So I'm working at Ford, working at Mitsubishi. I even went to Nissan. I found out I was really good at selling. Really good. And some of those people I worked with end up being some of my good friends that I even know right now. Actually, they're supporting me 100%. Actually, so they're still friends with me right now.
That's good.
So I'm selling cars. I end up meeting a woman. We fall in love. We get married maybe 90 days later. We elope on the beach in Miami. Said I'll never get married, but she was just like me. We eloped. She's good. She never got in trouble her whole life or anything like that. Now we get married under not my real name too, so she doesn't know anything.
So she doesn't know anything about your past exploits, that you're on the run. She knows you as the other name that you assumed.
Yes.
Okay.
Got it. And the funny thing is, there's a couple times we would be out drinking, and I would tell, because I wanted to tell her so bad, and I would be like, "Well, yeah, just to let you know, there's some stuff I did in the past. I don't know if I ever would catch up." And she's like, "It's okay, baby." She's thinking, maybe, it could be a traffic ticket or an old baby mama or something. She's like, "It's okay."
You don't understand. We're gonna need all those bottles up there for this story. I don't understand.
So, and I want to tell her we'll be sitting out drinking, and I just couldn't tell her. I'm like, I can't tell you, because if I tell you, then now you're involved. And I did it a lot to save her. And
yeah, plausible deniability.
You got it, because I knew like if she ever got interrogated, she couldn't say anything, and I also didn't want her to get in trouble for saying she helped me out.
And that would be interesting, because I think there's a rule like a wife can't testify against her husband, but being that she married somebody technically not your name, I don't really know how that would work.
Yeah, how that would work.
The loophole around that, because they didn't marry you, she married well, whoever the name was you was using.
Yep.
That would
Yeah.
have been interesting.
Yeah. So we ended up having a baby and everything. Had my daughter, and so we're living good. And I told her I had these ideas of starting a business and things like that. And she's like, all right, let's start something. And I'm like, dang, she's down for whatever I want to do, you know? So we opened up our first business. It was like 2017, pretty much took every dime that we had. I quit my job. It was a cleaning business that we opened up and started. Towel and carpet cleaning, actually. So I went and got all the equipment for it. Had to go get an extra vehicle. I'm cleaning commercial towel and grout, and I'm doing that pretty much full time every day. She's even helping me sometimes.
It's a tough job.
Oh
That's a lot
yeah,
of manual labor there.
oh yeah, and then from there we got into office cleaning, cleaning offices after it closed. I'm
Yeah.
doing that as well, so I'm getting contract these offices. I'm getting kind of bigger now, so then I start hiring employees. Even start hiring employees to do that. Now we're also even doing we're in the mobile detail. We do that as well. So we're out mobile detail and have employees doing that as well. She ended up quitting her job. We opened up her nail salon, which is right here in downtown Tampa. That's doing great. We've had that open now for about maybe 3 years,
It's
two and a
still
half
open.
years, 3 years. Yeah, it's still. Oh yeah, it's still. Oh yeah, we might have to get a second location. Actually, it's going so big, so we're thinking
Wow,
about
that's good.
expanding that to like Orlando or Miami.
So the mobile detailing you were talking about, is that still going on as well?
Oh yeah, oh man, that's definitely. I get called. I have to turn down business. I get so many calls. I'm actually one of the top rated detailers. My company is one of the top rated when you Google it, actually, in all of Tampa.
That's good.
Work hard, sell myself and sell what I do, and quality over quantity is what I believe in. So
Absolutely.
start getting into real estate. I actually never got my license, but I ended up I ended up surrounding myself with people who had money, people who had connections. So I figured I need to make friends with people that have money. I need to figure out where they're at and make friends with them. So I ended up making friends with this multimillionaire, and he showed me how he was making money off of mobile homes. He would buy mobile homes and then rent them out on a rent to own program, like buy here, pay here, but with mobile homes.
Mm-hmm.
And he was making money off that, and that's how he first started. So he showed me what to do. I bought my first mobile home for like $1,000 and ended up renting it out for like $850 a month, you know. And lot rent was only $450, so I'm pocketing $400 a month every month just off one mobile home. And
Wow.
yeah. So we started
Two
doing
months,
that.
the mobile home's done paid for.
Oh yeah. So we're doing that. We're doing pretty good, man. I mean, we got brand new cars. I got a nice house. So my relative who let me use his name, he's seeing all this. He gets jealous.
Oh boy.
Yeah, this is when it goes downhill.
Oh boy.
This is when everything just
When it's
hits the
going
spotlight.
good, that's when you start to
Yep,
worry because you know the hammer's about to drop.
yep. Now at this time, I've been on the run for so long, like I said, 14, 15 years, whatever. I've been on the run for so long. I even like blocked out everything I did in the past. I'm living like a regular. I mean, I would drive, cops are behind me. I'm not like, yeah, how you doing, officer? Things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's so far removed. I can't even remember half the shit I did 15 years ago. So I can imagine,
Yeah,
even if it's something of that magnitude, because it's not like the shit you were doing was god awful. It's not like you killed somebody or something.
yeah,
They're hunting you down for. It was in the grand scheme of things, petty stuff.
yeah. It really was.
Yeah,
Just idiotic, dumb stuff, that bad decision stuff that I shouldn't have been doing. Pretty much,
right.
that's what it was. And I'm also opening. I also have a DJ business too. So I remember one time I'm DJing a wedding, and the wedding ends up being for a cop, and he's got the whole police force there. I'm DJing this wedding.
I don't know if I'd have done that one, but I mean, I get
Hey,
the confidence.
which is funny. I'm still friends with him too. He's friends with me to this day still, and he cracks up about it because he's like, "Man, you had me fooled," and yeah, the whole police force fooled. So I'm still friends with him, but so he gets jealous, and I could tell he has jealousy in his voice because he's calling me. He's not doing so well out in California. He's asking me, "Hey, could you not can how did I do something, but can I send him money? And can I do this? And can I buy him this? And can I buy him that?" So I'm like, "You help me out. I'll help you out with this. I'll do this." And so he's doing this maybe for about a good 6 months with me. after a while, I kind of stopped. I was like, man, you gotta start doing something for yourself. Well, I guess that was his cutoff point, because maybe about a month after that, I get a knock on the door during the afternoon. Open up the door, and there's a guy in a suit. Shows me his badge. Couple cops behind him, and they're like, yeah, can I see your ID, or driver's license? Well, they ask me questions, of course, first,
Right.
who I am, and so I'm giving them, my name, not my real name, obviously. So I'm giving my name, and I'd say at this time I'm thinking I'm invincible. So I'm like, whatever. So I give them my name and everything. I give them the driver's license. Phone rings. I'm like, they're at the front door. I don't let them in. I'm like, guys, go answer the phone real quick. I go answer the phone. I go into my bathroom. I always kept liquid Band-Aid with me. So come back just in case. So so the cop goes, can we talk to you real quick? I'm like, sure. So they're talking to me for about a good 15 minutes about what I do, So at this time, I'm thinking like, why are they asking me? Why are they being so nice to me? What is really going on? So one of the guys in the suits comes and pulls out a folder, a vanilla folder, opens it up. I see a handwritten letter, and then he um, takes that letter out like I wasn't supposed to see the letter, and then there's a picture of my relative, his driver's license right there, and he goes, "Do you know that person?" And I'm like, "No, I never seen that man in my life. I don't know who that is." And they're like, we have reason to, that you assumed his old identity because he changed his name. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never seen that guy before. Maybe we got the same name. I don't know. So which I didn't know they can do this, they can fingerprint you on the spot right now from the cop car.
Yeah.
With a
Yeah.
thumbprint.
Yep.
So pulls out the thumbprint. I don't know if the Band-Aid worked or not. I'm believing it did, because they thumbprinted me for a good 6 times. Nothing was coming back. They're out in front of my house for about a good hour now. They're getting mad. They're trying to tell me, they're like, why don't you tell us your real name? Just tell us your real name. It'll be easy for you. Things will be easier. And I'm like, well, if you know my real name, why don't you just tell me my real name? I'm playing jokes with them now. So anyway, they're like, we could take you to jail and we're going to book you under John Doe and you're going to sit there forever. And you can't do that by law, buddy. You have to take me under the name I'm in.
Yeah.
So they take me to jail, fingerprint me. The first thing to do was very first thing is fingerprint me. Sitting there in jail, nothing comes back still when they fingerprint me at that moment. So they have to book me under the name I gave them, which is what my driver's license is in. So they booked me under driving under suspended license because they suspended it or something like that. They even put false license or false identification to a law officer. It was like one felony and a bunch of misdemeanors or something or whatever. So my bond was on like $5,000. I called my girl on the phone. I'm like, yeah, they took me to jail. Hurry up and come bond me out. She's like, I'm on my way. I got you. So she knows something's going on, but she doesn't know exactly. So she bonds me out. I'm only out of jail maybe about 3 hours. And we're in the car driving. We're, whatever, get something to eat, go back home. She's like, so what's going on? So I'm like, how can I tell her this? What am I going to do? How am I going to? And then she's got her friend with her too. Her friend's sitting there with her, and her friend had cash on her at the time. So her friend is like, yeah, what happened? Because she helped bond me out. So I'm like, oh man, I gotta tell her too. What the hell am I going to do? So as I'm saying that, my phone rings. The detective calls me. He's like, hey, where are you at? I'm like, why? He goes, we know you're at home. We know that you went home. He's like, trust me, we know this. He goes, you weren't supposed to bond out. They weren't supposed to let you out. They made a mistake, and during shift change, they didn't let the other shift know. They were supposed to hold me there, but they didn't let the other shift know. So when the other shift came into play, oh, your bond's been posted, and I got bonded out or whatever. They were supposed to hold me, until all my prints came back from the big search they were doing. Because I guess they weren't searching everywhere. They were only searching a couple states or something.
Right. Probably Florida and surrounding states. Maybe they hadn't quite went as far as to where you had.
Yeah, so they weren't, and nothing was coming back in Florida, obviously. I've never got in trouble here and things like that. So They were like, "Yeah, we know who you are, Mr. Pate. You might as well just turn yourself in." Oh, my eyes got so big. I was like, I ain't been called that in so long. I forgot that was my name. So yeah, I went and turned myself in. My woman had to find out everything,
Mm.
and went turned myself into jail. I had Florida charges, which were false information to a Leo and obtaining a false driver's license, and I learned my lessons with the public defender. So we hired a lawyer in Florida. The lawyer in Florida, he took care of things quick within 90 days. Done. Took care of things quick. Got pretty much almost everything dropped, time served. Then I had to wait for Colorado to pick me up. So as we're waiting, we're calling lawyers. I was like, just for the heck of it, let's call the public defender's office and see what they say. So we called the public defender. He goes, well, this was your second escape charge, and there's a maximum of 12 years. So they're going to want to probably give you the max because it's your second. And plus, since your sentence was originally 10 years, they're going to make you serve that 10 again. So you're looking at 20 plus years. And I could probably get you a plea for 17, 15. We hang up the phone on him. And we call attorneys. Every paid attorney we're calling, they're like, you're probably looking at a max of your the 4 year sentence of what you got, reconsidered for.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get you time served. You already served about 2 years. You have your state number. So worst things are worse, they'll probably sentence you to 4 years prison, but you'll turn around and come right on parole because you'll have time served. They're like, they're not going to do this because of something happened 15 years ago. And he goes, be honest with you, you waited so long that the laws changed. So he goes, now since the laws have changed, since you've been there, some of the stuff you got in trouble for, you wouldn't have got so much time for it because, people are locked up forever back then. And now it's not like that. So he's like, the law's working into your favor. And he's like, now, not only that, it's also a democratic state. So, so there's a lot of things that's working in my favor. Weed's legal, all that stuff is,
Right.
going on now. So end up going to Colorado. I was in Colorado in that jail there for another maybe 3.5 months.
Well, so second PSA again, folks, paid lawyer, paid lawyer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. End up hiring one of the best attorneys out there. It was like maybe 13 grand for my charges to take care of. This attorney I hired goes, I'm going to get you probation. Are you? He goes, yeah. He goes, why should they throw you in jail? You've been 15 years, done nothing. You have done nothing. He was like, anything. You're a positive role model in your community. You've hired people. And he goes, not only that, I've heard that the people you hire are either people who can't get jobs because they're ex-felons or drug addicts, stuff like that. And that's who I hire. He goes, so you're actually responsible for helping people out. And those people now can put food on the table for their families. He's like, you corrected yourself. You don't need Department of Corrections anymore. So He goes, I'm going to get you probation. He goes, watch. So he ends up getting my escape charge dropped down to absconding, which was a misdemeanor. He goes, that's your biggest charge right there. I drop it down to, we're going to plead guilty to that. And then we're going to do an open sentence with the judge. The max you'll get is 4 years. It'll be open with the judge. And I think you have a good, and then the judge I had was very reasonable. He wanted to listen to my life story from beginning, from how I grew up all the way to the end. So I sat there and told him a 15-minute story about, how people kept giving me chances and I succeeded in all these chances I've done in the last 15 years, and he told me, he goes, you're not the same man that you were back when you were a kid. He goes, technically a man doesn't grow or become mature until they're about 27, 28. And he goes, that's about the age when you left and went out of the country and decided to change your life. He goes, so you were doing everything as a kid. He goes, I wouldn't feel right sending you to prison because, he goes, you're already doing good for yourself. I wouldn't do that. He's like, you have 40 letters of recommendation on my desk that I was reading. He goes, not only that, you remind me of a movie, Catch Me If You Can, with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
He's like, except when you're on the run, you weren't doing bad things, but you're doing these good things, And he goes, I understand that you couldn't do this. And he goes, and you have a wife that still wants to be with you. So you have a support system. I'm not going to send you to prison. So he goes, I'm going to give you 2 years probation, automatically transfer it to Florida. And, I want you to do great in life and continue what you're doing. And yeah, from there, man, end up coming back to Florida and living life now, man.
That is amazing. I mean, that's truly nothing short of amazing. And I like what he said. Like, you know, a lot of times you think when people go on the run, they have to turn to more crime to stay on, you know, living and to stay, you know, I guess afloat, so to speak. And you done the exact opposite. You went to school, you came back, you started jobs, you employed people, like he said. I mean, that's just, you do not hear this story every day. You just do
Yeah.
not. Usually it's, you know, they do something to get thrown right back in prison, which would have
Yep.
probably been detrimental to you, you know,
Oh,
given the past stuff. But being that
yeah.
it was, it definitely worked in your favor, man. That's amazing. So you didn't even have to go back at all.
I just served that time. Like I said, it was like what 3.5 months so when they came and picked me up, and brought me back out there, I was in there the whole time. Oh, well, the judge didn't let me go right away. He did sentence me to another 45 days. He goes, I just want you to sit and think that, how it could have been,
Right.
just sit and think about it. But when I went back, this is right in the middle of COVID, right when COVID, you know, March of COVID, May of COVID. So it was right in the middle of that. They start releasing people who weren't violent and things like that. And I went and was working in the kitchen, so my time was getting knocked off. So I think I only did like another 3 weeks
Wow.
after that. And because of COVID and everything else, they released me and and on my way and came back down here to Florida. Some stuff I had to start over, down here when I came back. Within the 7 months, I lost a lot.
Yeah.
But I actually gained more than now than even when I went in, So, I took that knowledge. Now I can pretty much live free. I can
Yeah.
be myself.
Yeah. Your
And I
real
don't have to,
name.
yeah, my real name. I don't have to look over my back. And there's a lot of stuff I can do now to where like any business I do, I can expand it now. So now what I'm doing now is I'm taking people that have maybe business ideas who can't maybe even afford to, let's say, start one. I'm actually just mentoring them, helping them out, so they can start theirs, things like that, putting my time into them. Because I learned one thing: knowledge is more precious than anything.
Absolutely right.
Knowledge is more precious than anything. So that's what I'm doing now, pretty much. Like you said, trying to turn this negative to a positive and trying to stop the next person from doing what I did or help them out. So
Absolutely, man. And you seem to be doing a bang up job. And you've got a little bit of a YouTube channel, podcast type thing you're working on yourself, right?
yeah, so I started that a little over a month ago. I started that right when I did the Matt Cox and so the
Mm-hmm.
first 3 episodes pretty much is telling my life story. Then after that, I'm going to get into like a little bit of some reaction videos of other fugitives. Like I'm working on a reaction video of, I don't know if you've seen the show on Netflix, Inventing Anna,
Yeah.
or change your name. So because there's a little similarity, but not a lot, but a little bit. So I'm gonna get into some reactions of some of the stuff, that I can see. This is how she probably did it, and probably
Right.
break it down because they don't break it down for us.
Right.
So but there's some stuff I can see. Well, this is how she got that done. And then I want to get onto interviewing people myself that did trouble, had some past, and trying to turn things around for them. And I have a TikTok. My TikTok, actually, I started that a month ago. That's blowing up. My TikTok is
Yeah.
blowing up more than
What's the
anything.
handle so our listeners can find you on there?
On YouTube and TikTok is Fugitive TV. So I have it as Fugitive TV. So
Okay.
for both. So yeah, everything
Well,
is
we'll put that into the show notes of this on the
okay.
YouTube, and we'll put it on. We'll share it to Instagram and Facebook as well. So we'll put that
All
in
right.
there. That way they can, if they want to see more content from you, they can just go straight to there and follow you on those as well. Um, Man, I can't thank you enough for coming on. The story, like I said again, is nothing short of amazing. How it started out going down a real bad path. Well, you started out with good intentions and went down
Yeah.
a bad path. Then you completely turned it around, and it's just not a story you hear every day, but it's a story you wish you could hear every day.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
glad we could able to, you were able to come on the show and share it with us. And it sounds like you're doing amazing things, and we wish you nothing but the best going forward. I like to usually close out a show by asking like one question.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would have done different throughout all this, or do you feel like every choice you made kind of led you to where you are here?
That's a very good question. That's a question I still battle internally even to this day.
Because one
Only,
choice different changes a lot.
yeah, because it's like, well, here's the thing. I'm always going to regret being in prison because that's when my, my son passed.
Mm-hmm.
Then I also look at it as if like if none of that happened, where would I be where I'm at today? So it's kind of hard to even answer that, because if I be like, well, I don't regret nothing, well, of course I do. He passed away, so I'm always going to regret that. But I think from that, it made me who I am, and it made me know that life is short. You got to reach out to your loved ones, the people you care about. You got to let them know. And since life is so short, you got to take advantage of that. You got to do all the positivity you can, because we all know negativity spreads faster than positivity.
Absolutely.
But you could be the one to change that, any cycle you have in your life, or things like that. Oh, and speaking of my son, I actually, when I got out of Colorado jail, I first thing I did was go visit his grave. So I did get to go a chance to go see his grave, this time around, and make my peace. It took a long time, but I finally got to go do that. So
Well, that's good, man. I'm glad. And obviously, our condolences for things happening the way it did. But like I said, that was even more fuel on the fire for you to just kind of throw your hands up and just say, fuck it, and do whatever, and just kind of basically just slump down and fall into a rut. And you did the exact opposite. And, I, for one, I'm going to say I'm astonished, impressed, and proud for everything you've accomplished, man. And the fact that you're doing like what you said now with businesses, helping out people, that it's hard to get a job when you're an ex-con. It's
oh
real
yeah,
hard. A lot of
yeah.
people don't want to give you that chance. They'll say, oh well, you can do it. They're gonna say that shit, but it's really hard. It's hard.
Oh yeah, and you might be able to get a job, but moving up that corporate ladder, they might say no. You be on the front line the rest of
Yeah.
your life at that job too. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard. So I try my best. That's my way of giving back, pretty much.
Right.
So
Well, like I said again, man, I know I've said it a couple of times, but I'm gonna say it one more. Nothing short of amazing, and I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and telling your story, folks. That was Kase Blaize. I am Hollywood Wade, and unfortunately, we are out of time. Tune in next week for an all new episode of Crime and Entertainment. Sir, we appreciate it very, very much, and best of luck to you.
thanks a lot, man. Be safe out there.